welcome to How's Your ePresence? I am Mark Galvin, your host, and this show is produced by ePresence. We are so glad you are here with us today. You know what? It's been a minute. We've had a couple of weeks off here. We kind of took some days off for the summer to enjoy the heat and go out and get a little tan. I will tell you, my legs are not tan. I don't know what it is. I don't care how much time I spend in the sun. It doesn't do any good. We're glad you're with us today. We're going to talk about something every organization needs to be good at, and that is sales. Sales is something that you and I both know that the leader of the org needs to be good at, as well as that frontline person. So we're going to get deep into sales today, and I think that you'll find it extremely valuable. What do we do here on this channel? We talk about business, and we like to show you things that'll help you do your business a little better. We've got a fantastic YouTube channel. If you've not gone over there to look at it, go check it out. We have great topics there. We talk about websites. We talk about SEO. We talk about advertising on social media or advertising through pay-per-click, all of those things. We get into email blasts. We talk about all that fun stuff. So you should go check out our YouTube channel so that you can see how much help we can give you. I mean, we're going to help you be good at all those things. And then when you get there, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. If you subscribe, then you get to find out when we go live, and you can jump in the middle of a conversation. So hit that subscribe button wherever you are. We would also love for you to ask questions of all of our guests. If you've noticed in the past shows, people that ask a question sometimes take over the show, which is absolutely cool. So if you're watching the show today and you've got a question about sales, then you should throw that question in there. You can just take it off. I like that. I just sit back and smoke a cigarette here. I bring out the bourbon because I store the bourbon behind me, and I can take a break. So that's what that is all about. I'm just kidding. I don't drink bourbon. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about sales, as I've already shared that with you. We're going to get into lots of information about sales and how you can do it better, how you can inject some life into it, how you can build a legacy at sales. We're going to do this by bringing on Dale Dupree of the Sales Rebellion. Dale Dupree of the Sales Rebellion. He has been known in the past as the Copier Warrior. And I think all of us have seen this. There are so many great salespeople that have come out of the world of selling copiers, and I'm assuming that's what that means. We'll find out more from Dale, but this is one of those areas that you've got to be really good at sales if you can succeed in that space. He is the leader and founder of the Sales Rebellion, has over 13 plus years of sales experience, and now he runs training and development programs, in his words, all over the world. So I think that you're going to like this. So just a reminder, wherever you are, you're just tuning in, love for you to ask a question. If you see something you would like more info on, be free to feel comfortable, I should say, to drop that right there in the chat box. Cool. Well, I think that's all of my pre-show stuff. Let's see if we can find Dale and bring him onto the screen. There he is. Dale, how are you, sir?
Wonderful. How are you, Mark? Thanks for having me on.
I am great. I'm so glad you're here today. You are coming to us from the great state of Tennessee. Is that right?
Sure am. My new hometown.
And you moved from what state?
Florida. Orlando, Florida.
So you didn't move to Tennessee because they didn't have an income tax. Why would you go to Tennessee?
Hey, I didn't say that. I mean, it could have been the income tax thing, you know?
I thought
that was
Florida
the most
didn't have an
comfortable
income
part.
tax.
We don't have a state income tax, and they don't in Tennessee either.
Yeah. So it wasn't for tax reasons.
You figured it out. Right? Yeah. That's literally why I came here. I don't have any other interests, but I just don't want to pay a state income tax.
That's it. That's it. Well, there's something there, I think a lot of people pick states these days based on taxes, but I would go to, and you said East Tennessee, which means you're closer to the Carolina side of the state, which also means you're in the mountains. That's a pretty part of the world up there.
Yes. I'm in the literal mountains. So I left the city in Orlando to get away from the city, Orlando. I felt that the clutter, the busyness, the fast-paced side of what I had grown up in It just got a little bit out of hand. I was born and raised there. I'm 36 years old, so I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida. And you got to think, honestly, 36 years ago now, I don't remember much as a baby, but when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, we could still ride the bike around, downtown Orlando. And you
Really?
wouldn't have to worry about traffic or people. And
Oh, that's
in this
cool.
day and age, it is much different, right? They
It's a
had to
little.
build
Hey,
bike
listen,
lanes.
dude, that's happening everywhere, right? I remember that back in the day. I'm in Atlanta, and things have changed here as well. I got 3 kids. I didn't let them do the things that I was doing as a kid. I used to ride my bike to elementary school. No joke. From my door to door, rode my bike down a major highway, went to school. Yeah, these days we just don't do that sort of thing anymore. So you're a big sales guy, and tell me this: in your bio, you are known as the Copier Warrior. What does that mean? There it is. He's got
I
a
literally,
shirt with it. I didn't
yeah,
see
just
that before.
it's a prospecting day for a lot of my students that I train, and so usually I harness the energy of my personal brand, the Copier Warrior,
That's
when I
awesome.
go and I help teams and individuals with the particular subject of prospecting. So the Copier Warrior was my way of standing out in what would be known as, the sea of sameness or indistinguishable salespeople.
Yep.
And so essentially what I had created was something that drew people into Dale and the culture that I wanted to create, the ecosystems that I was living within, instead of the copier in the company that supported the copier. By doing that, I got a little bit more of emotional buy-in from people, and so I became kind of infamous because of it. Right, my reputation was built more than just, oh, Dale works for a copier company or this particular one with a name that is hard to pronounce, right? But instead, it was, oh, you mean the Copier Warrior, Dale Dupree, right? So really, I wanted people to buy more into my morals, my ethics, my values, and understand what it was that I was leading with, from the perspective of serving others more than selling copy machines. And the Copier Warrior exuded that exact image.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. I have been in the room with copier salespeople in the past, and some of them just are not great. They don't look like they love what they're doing. And I say that not tongue in cheek either. If you show up and you're not excited about what you're selling, I don't want to buy it. Just not interested.
You know, copy machines are pretty boring.
They
And
are.
and
I
now
get it.
the thing is though, Mark, is that they're also it's kind of like a secret society, if you will, to an extent. And bear with me as I explain that. Think about the opportunity to make very high six figures as a sales rep that has zero college degree and maybe not even a high school education, and the copier world will hire you, right? In turn,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
rags to riches, right? So that the stories that have been told inside of the copier world are pretty intense, when it comes to like taking people from nothing to having financial security and building futures for themselves. So the copier world has been very good to people, but it is like literally the most generic, boring, stale product. It's nothing sexy about it, right? And so
Yeah.
you're right. It's hard for people sometimes to be excited about selling a copier. Instead, they'd like to just make it very commoditized and transactional. Like, oh, did you need one? Here's the price. Oh, you want me to drop it $10 more? You haven't signed yet? How about a free TV? I mean, that's the literal sales
I never
cycle.
got a
Like,
free TV.
shove it down your throat, get it done as fast. You never got a
I never got a free TV. I could have gotten a free TV.
Should have called. I'm just kidding.
I was talking to the wrong salesperson. See, now that would be exciting. I can give you a free TV if you buy this copier, man. We'll get you hooked up.
I'm not kidding though, Mark. I
Netflix
was
all
in a
day.
sales cycle once where a guy, he goes, well, the other guy's offering me a free 52-inch TV. And I just said, okay.
Is that what you want?
Is that his way of bribing you into doing business with him? I'm not really sure. Like what you're telling me, I'm not giving you a TV. If you get it, all I expect is for you to invite me over so I can watch with you, whatever we're watching.
That is unbelievable. TVs aren't that expensive anyway. Go buy your own TV. All right. So TVs have changed a lot. We've already gotten into it. I always like to ask what do you do and why do you do it? So you don't sell copiers. What do you do now?
Well, now I'm the chief sales officer and a self-appointed leader of the sales rebellion. But
So
really
is
to
that code
understand,
word for I started this organization, so I'm the leader?
I started it alongside my best friend. So the two of
Okay.
us, are technically the face of the organization. But very quickly, I decided to be the guy doing all the podcasts and everything else. So I took it away as quick as I
You're the
could. So,
self-appointed.
so I'm
Okay. All right.
self-appointed.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. I'm sure. I don't think he cares that much that I'm out here doing my thing, right? But and it's that whole idea too. I'm like introvert, extrovert, right? He's got more of an introverted mindset. It's the perfect person to have as your business partner from the perspective of opposites attract, right? I got a lot of strategy around that in general, but also Jeff and I started this company because not because we want to train salespeople, it's because we want to make the sales world a much better place to live. So what I do, I help sellers fill up their pipeline with more purpose. I help
Okay.
sellers to focus on what it is that they are providing for other people as a service and not what they're trying to get them to pay them money for so they can make a commission. So at the Rebellion, we just shift the mindset from the perspective again of what quote unquote people are doing from a sales capacity to lean in more toward choosing more of a legendary lifestyle that leaves a legacy in its wake and it creates more impact for the people that they seek to serve.
Okay, that sounds really impressive. I don't know what that means. How do I apply that to my life if I'm a salesperson? I hear you, and you're going to give me like 3 points. These are the three areas that you're going to help me do better and live a better life.
So salespeople are typically told, come into this company, learn our product, and then go sell our product to other people. Here's the thing that they don't tell you though, is that nobody likes to be sold to. So here I am as a salesperson being taught to go and sell stuff to people that don't like that in the first place. So if we
I
look at
love
it
a
from a
phrase.
found,
If I may inject, one of my favorite phrases that I heard from one of my favorite bosses once upon a time is that um, nobody likes to be sold to, but everybody loves to buy. So that's that right along that same vein, right?
I think it's Zig Ziglar or somebody like that that first said
Is
that,
that
right?
who
But
that
it's
was
a
from?
it's
He
one
didn't
of the
make it up himself.
Carnegie
I
or
do know that.
one of those guys, right? I've heard my dad say it too back in the past, and I think it's a very good valid point. It's like common sense for all of us, more so than it is like some kind of epiphany. And I think that we've gotten away from common sense inside of sales. So I think what we would break it down for from the perspective of like, let's take point A. So point A. So you're about to literally go out and quote unquote prospect, quote unquote targets that you're going to quote unquote sell something to, but they don't want to be sold anything. So
Right.
here you are being put into this position of basically being set up for failure. And so what we do is give people a different perspective of, okay, so instead of going and selling people stuff, why don't you meet them where they are in regards to the needs and the gaps that you can help fill with a product or service. But secondarily to that, how about just giving people a better experience than they typically get at the forefront using some of our defined methodologies, and refined methodologies and becoming more authentic in the way that you approach people than being a salesperson. So that would be more of a tangible um, just example of what it is that we do from the perspective of the phase of prospecting for as to answer the question. Hopefully that answers it fully.
Yeah, and we got an hour, so we'll get into more of that, folks. If you are tuning in, and I see folks are on LinkedIn, if you got a question for Dale, don't forget. I love it when somebody hijacks our show. So if you've got a question, just drop it right there in the chat box, and I'd be happy to serve them up to Dale. Now, there is something you've said to me, and I thought was really interesting. And you said you believe the sales world is broken, that it's totally screwed up. How in the world do you think you can fix it? I mean, that's a major, I mean, that's like, let's get rid of COVID, right? How are you going to solve all the sales problems we got in the world?
I don't think it's as bad as or as big, I should say, as trying to cure a disease, but it is an
Okay, that's
epidemic
fair.
without a doubt. And this is how we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it one person at a time. I don't believe that within my generation and that within the time that I'll be alive on this earth that we'll see full and complete and radical change. But I do believe that the wave has already started. And that, guys like myself and the silent majority out there are at the forefront of these things and have been doing them for a long time. But we're giving people permission to be loud about it. So the rebellion isn't just about like, hey, use our methodologies. It's also about this idea of, hey, maybe you've been doing stuff like this. Come in and join our community of rebels and walk alongside us as we continue to change the landscape of sales to begin with.
I really like the idea of being a sales rebel. I think that that's really interesting. And I think that definition just by itself is really smart. It's good marketing. As a marketer, I love that. Being a sales rebel is great. There is something there's something about sales that I think is you probably address, but it's a tough one. And that is there's fear, right? There's fear of rejection. There's fear of, gosh, do I make 50 phone calls today? Do I make any calls today? Do I ever talk to somebody on the phone? Do I call that person back who has clearly called me with something they're angry about? How do you how can you help salespeople get over that agita, right? That ooh feeling of doing that type of work.
Yeah, so I think it has to start with training the mindset to look at the world and look at the world of sales from a different lens. And we like to call it the lens of a servant leader. So when we
Good.
sit back and we say, from a leadership standpoint, that I'm going to be somebody that is disconnected from the outcomes, from the perspective of what my preferences are around them, but I said I'm going to seek to serve. When we start there as a foundational piece, it's much easier to pick up the phone and make that dial, even though it's like, kind of weird, kind of wonky, kind of frustrating sometimes, especially after a full day of dials, even. Right. It's easier when you have this specific foundation that you look at, that you're driven by, that has purpose tied to it as well too, that's creating fulfillment and happiness for you, as opposed to just like finally getting someone to say yes to an appointment and like breathing out for the first time. But if you're breathing the entire call block instead, and you're breathing life into each and every word that comes out of your mouth, or into people through each and every word that comes out of your mouth, and it creates something radically different for you to latch onto.
Hmm. That's interesting. All right. So can we do this? Will you kind of walk me through if you were going to sit down with me and you're going to say, okay, and I say, here's my problem is don't tell the boss, but this scares the hell out of me. If you were going to sit down and talk with that salesperson, they really want to succeed, but they've got this, let's call it an emotional hookup, maybe some PTSD from the last week of calls where they got no positive feedback. How would you walk that sale? And actually, truth be known, we're actually talking about the owners of the companies. They hate the sales, right? They would love to have somebody do all the sales for them, but they've got to do it. How would you sit down, or what are the first few steps that you would go through having a one-on-one conversation? Let's pretend I'm that person. How would you walk me through that?
Well, so there's a couple of different ways that I see this, right? So if we're talking about, I'm somebody that's in a sales capacity that has a sense of doubt or fear attached to what it is that I'm doing, I would start with this idea of unlearning all the problems. So I would start with
Ooh,
this this concept of really like releasing yourself from the things that are holding you back from doing what you do,
okay.
because a lot of the reasons that we like don't like something is caused by trauma, whether it's like from our childhood, or it's from something that we did when we started in sales, for example, or like going from, hey, I wanted to be a marketer, and so I started marketing, and my boss was like, hey, you need to actually get into sales because that's what I need the most help with, and it'll be great, I promise. And suddenly,
You'll
you're
you'll love
overwhelmed
it.
day one with the worst emotions you've ever felt in your life. I am a sales rep that struggled with depression, struggled with anxiety, and actually it went pretty deep. I mean, I actually attempted, it's something I'm open about, that if somebody's listening today needs to talk about it as well too, can always reach out. But I attempted suicide in my life when I was a top performer. So when I was
Wow.
making high six figures and I was doing very well in my career, I was literally dragged to the bottom of the well. And And I was seeking the things that you're talking about, that we give to people today, which is another reason why we started this company. I was seeking more affirmation. I was seeking community. I was seeking a better existence inside of sales. And I was kind of getting way too attached to the identity of that sales sucks, right? That's
Right.
literally what I was telling myself, even though I was a really good salesperson at some points, in my life while I said those things to myself. So, again, like a total mindset shift has to start. Unlearning is one of the first places that I would begin with somebody that's in that type of situation. And from the perspective of being proactive, I would also start to develop with that person, what do we want to turn this into? Right? What kind of experiences do you want to create with people? And how can we like get this weird stereotype out of the word sales for you to embolden you and empower you to go out and be an advisor, a rebel advisor to people that you're speaking to, so that there's confidence instilled, there's clarity in your words, and that you change the game and the way that you approach people.
All right. Now, first of all, I love this. I love hearing the vulnerability that you've just shared, which I did not expect that. So I'm a little shocked, but you hit something I think is really important and it's really worthwhile. And I think for business leaders, or sales leaders or salespeople to know that if you're getting up in the morning, you're going into work and you've got a knot in your stomach about the work you're doing. Dale, you said this. There's something that happened that caused that, right? There's something in your past that created that, and you got to deal with it in some way, right? Is that what you said? Deal with, recognize it and deal with that one thing.
Right. And I would soften it just a little bit from the perspective of that it's not about beating it. Like, so a lot of times when people hear things like you got to deal with that, it's not about beating it, it's about accepting it. And it's about learning it and understanding that it exists so that you can exist as well too without having to worry
Got it.
about this lump on your shoulder all the time, right? But instead, when you call it the obvious and when you dig yourself into those things, it's hard. It's really hard to do. Even with a counselor that you've never met before that you're going to pay and never see again, right? It's very difficult to talk about the things that have created that wound up person that we see today in the first place, that we've got to unlearn things and, that ball of yarn concept. Right. But so for me and for my own struggles and the way that I was able to get out of them myself and also teach others is to embrace the suck and understand that you need to recognize that it exists and you need to live alongside of it so that you can fully understand why it's there, and never really have a mentality of beating it as much as just knowing that it does not have control on you once you understand it.
That's interesting. I think that's fascinating. So, folks, as you see, we're talking to Dale Dupree. He is with the Sales Rebellion. He is their self-appointed leader of sales and training and everything that's great about the company. But he does have a great partner that is happy with him taking that over. So Dale, we've got about 6 minutes for another question, and if we run over into the next segment, that's totally cool. And I'm kind of beating this to death because I do think we're looking at a subject that I think is very interesting. And as the owner of an organization and leader of salespeople, I have seen this happen where a sales performer starts to wane, and that it's fixable, and from a disciplinary, as a leader, like, well, let's have meetings and talk about it and try to help you. If I'm a leader of an org and I've got salespeople and one of them's not performing as well as I would hope that they would, what should I do to help them rediscover their greatness?
So it's okay to have a standard in which you're trying to help people to get to. It's not okay to create comparisons from one person to the next. And so the
Ooh.
first thing that I would say is that if I have somebody in the midst of like five people that just doesn't perform the way I'd like them to, and I'm basing that on these five other people, I can't actually help them to get better, because all I'm really going to be doing is projecting like, why aren't you over here with these folks? And what do we need to do to get you there, right? Instead of trying to tap into their brilliance and really help them to understand what it is that's going to make them better in the first place, or if they even want it, right? I think a lot of times as leaders, we tend to stay away from the conversation of like, hey, what do you think you need to do? in order
Right.
to get better, right? And so I think giving people, just like we talked about the unlearning concept and the identity of like going to trauma or things that have created what it is that you struggle with in the first place through activity or action or some kind of situation that you've been in. And the same thing applies with going to people and helping them. If they want to be better, they have to develop themselves. Nobody cares as much as you. So if I'm sitting here telling you, Mark, you got to be better, you got to do these things. There's 80 metrics that I need you to report on by next week. I'm really not thinking about you, right? So
Right.
I'm thinking about my process. But if instead I come to you and say, hey, Mark, do you want this? and if you do, like, how bad? Show me, right?
Yeah.
And let me help you to develop through that process. Let me give you some good actionable advice. Let me listen to your efforts and help you understand them better from the perspective of how you understand sales, right? Not how I want you to sell. Hopefully that makes sense.
I get it. I think it does sound good. I think that is that's a tough practice. I mean, I'll be honest. I think that's really hard. And I have we all see the prism of the world through our own lens, right? We define normal as what we've experienced, right? For generally, and that's a broad statement, but you kind of get the gist. So I think this is what normal's like because it's the only thing I know. I've had I've had motivational bosses who just rode me hard, pushed me, and frankly, I was good for it. I was better because of it. And I think the trick is a good boss figures those things out, sits down and understands what is it that makes these people better? How do I make you better? Um, but being willing to have that conversation, I think, is the first step. Personally, sit down and say, "Hey, I want you to be the best. I want you to be the best version of yourself. How do we get there?" And I think that's a good start. All right, we're almost this is a good breaking point because I don't want to get into another subject here before we take a break. So, Dale, this has been great. Tell everybody where they can find you. Where do you want people go to track you down?
There's a couple great places to find me. If you like content, especially daily content, linkedin.com/in/copier warrior is my personal page on LinkedIn. I post content there daily. You can find me on
Cool.
other social channels as well, Twitter, Instagram, the works. It's just at Sales Rebellion on any of those. But thesalesrebellion.com is also a great place to go and learn about the organization and what we do for salespeople, how we train teams, how we train individuals, what it is that we're doing to try and change the stereotype of sales.
I love it. All right. So, folks, we're going to take a break and we're going to bring Dale back. I have got to, honestly, there's a whole script here of stuff I haven't gotten to because we totally went off script in the first half. So, we've got lots of stuff to talk to Dale about. Dale, I will see you in, I don't know, 2-3 minutes, depending on how long it takes. Kinsey always tells me, Mark, it's not that long. So, let's see how long this takes, but don't go anywhere. We'll have you right back. For the rest of you folks, we'll see you in about 5 minutes. At ePresence, we have found that 86% of Americans want businesses to be more transparent than ever before. One of the best ways that you can be transparent is by using your social media. Use it to express those things that show that you are a genuine company and that you care. If you need help with that, we do that at ePresence. ePresence, social media solved. Hello, folks. Welcome back to How's Your ePresence? This show is produced by ePresence, and I am Mark Galvin, your host. We are into segment 2 of our show today with Dale Dupree of the Sales Rebellion. And we now do hour-long shows, and we drop each of those shows as a 30-minute segment. So if you're listening to the podcast and you have just tuned in, this is the second week. We're so glad that you are here. If you missed last week, You definitely want to go back and listen to that show. Dale and I went totally off script and talked about some of the things that keep salespeople from being successful. They may come with the talent, they may be ready to go, but there are things that hold them back. If you want to know what can hold salespeople back, definitely go back and listen to last week's podcast. If you're tuning in now and you're watching us live, you can catch the rest of the show. We will drop all these shows will be available on all of our social media channels. We drop it on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can always go back and catch the beginning of the show once we complete here. And remember, we are producing great content all over YouTube. So go to our YouTube channel. You can check out all our old shows where we provide content for business leaders to make their companies more successful. We'd love for you to go check that out. So who is Dale Dupree? He is the appointed leader and founder of the Sales Rebellion. If you wonder what that means, the appointed leader and founder, you have to go back and check the beginning of the show. We talked about that. He has over 13 plus years experience in sales, and he's now providing sales training and development. Let's see if we can track Dale down. Is he there? There he is. Dale, how are you, sir?
Good, Mark. How are you?
Good. Thanks for not bugging out, right? You hung out. That's good news. We've had that happen before. We were talking to a guest, and all of a sudden we come back for the second half. They're gone. Where did
It
they
happens.
go? I try to treat my people well. My guests. I try to give them all the respect, and sometimes I just run them off. So, we had a great conversation just a few minutes ago about how salespeople can kind of get over that agita of sales. But there's something that there's a topic I want to jump into, and it is people are the same, right? They kind of go into sales and they're the same sort of salesperson that everybody else sees. They don't really stand out. So, in putting it in your words, in the sea of sameness in the sales world, why does it plague so many people?
So what you said is really good in regards to people getting a bigger picture perspective of what this topic even means to begin with, which is people are the same, right?
Yeah,
And I truly believe that, for the most part, that even though we are all like a thumbprint, right? There's no two of the same kind, right? There's only one of a kind, with each one. That people operate very uniquely, but at the same time are very much the same inside of a process. So when we take sales, for example, everybody kind of learns it the same. You have to know your product, you have to know your pitch, you have to know X, know Y, know Z. And because everybody learns that, your competition is really actually the sales world as a whole, and not just the people that are selling a product against you. And what the point of that is that because let's just say a decision maker or somebody in reception or inside of a department that would typically be buying from you, because all they ever do is hear from the same type of salesperson over and over and over again, they've kind of lumped you all into the same place, and they're not really differentiating what it is that you could provide for them.
And so it's easier I do this. I want to put people in boxes, right? I meet someone. I met a guy the other day. He does tax work, and I called him a CPA, and he goes, not a CPA. Well, all of a sudden, I don't know where to put him, right? I was so confused. And so when a salesperson walks in, they're a salesperson, and I drop them in that bucket. And if they act like all the other salespeople, they're just a salesperson. Is that kind of the sameness that you're talking about? And that there's this perception, the car salesman kind of thing? Is that where we
For
are?
sure. Can I take 30 seconds to tell you why I called? Hi, my name is so and so with XYZ company. How are you today? I mean, that's all the same. And
Right.
people consistently do the same things over and over again. I remember the first time I made a cold call that would be like technically different and more rebellious in the way that we developed them. And I told the person on the other line that I wasn't selling fake free vacations. Hey, good news. This
I'm
is a
not
sales
selling
call,
free
but good
vacation.
news, I'm not selling free vacations. Probably tired of hearing from those people. In today's day and age, it's the same thing, but the car, is it car's extended warranty or the solar panel guy or So there's lots of familiar moments that you can create at the forefront of a cold call to help people see that you do have a differentiation in your style and your posture and your eloquence as well too, because people buy from those that they feel credibility with and trust. If they like
Right.
you on top of it, it's a bonus. And really, if you can build between being liked without trying to force that, right? But being liked because you're a literal interruption to the typical pattern of salespeople that they're used to seeing. And a really good example for those that are listening, they're thinking like, all right, well, you could say different stuff. That's cool. Well, we use something called the Rebel Letter Campaign. It's a 4-part letter sequence that we send in the literal mail, and we do digital letters as well too, right? But who gets mail? Especially after 2020, everybody thinks that nobody's in their office anymore and that nobody receives mail forwarding to their home, right? But those things are not true. So differentiating yourself through outreach by starting with letters that are themed as all crumpled up, have a coffee stain on them, there may be a little burnt, right? They got stamps as if they've traveled all over the world trying to find this busy person. You get the gist, right? But
Yeah.
when you start a sequence with somebody that gives them an experience, they will absolutely pick their phone up. And when you say, "Hey, it's Dale, the guy that sends you that crumpled up piece of paper in the mail, did you get it?" The posture, the whole dilemma of like, can I keep this person on the phone and gain their attention goes right out the window, right? What happens is instead you become what we look at as a rebel advisor. You become a good listener because people, they've already done their research. They liked your message. They got a laugh out of what you said, and either they're not interested or they are. Right. And that's the
Right.
other side of sales too, right? Is that we are constantly as salespeople, every time we walk in somewhere, we're like, I'm gonna set an appointment. I'm gonna set an appointment. Stop. Right. What if they don't need you? What if they don't want to set an appointment with you in the first place? We have to start to think about differentiating ourselves in that aspect as well and seek our tribe. Find the people that really do want to be a part of our community and that we can help and serve, but also that we're kind of like on that same level with in regards to what we can provide for them that's different than everybody else. Those two elements for me are the things that are the most needed inside of the way that people approach their sales career in order to start to create that differentiation that's desired by the people in the buying community.
I'm going to tell you something I think that's brilliant. If I got a postcard from someone and it had a coffee stain on it and it was all crumpled up and it actually had real handwriting on it, right? I would look at that and say, "What the heck?" And if my phone rang and it was that person calling, I would laugh. I was like, "All right, you got me. I'm interested. Whatever, you've got my attention because you figured out a way to stand out." I think that's really, really brilliant. It is, yes, I've gotten the phone call that did you know my warranty on my car just expired? I just want you to know that. I didn't know that. I'm so glad somebody was calling me. In fact, I had 5 people last week call to tell me that the warranty on my car expired. Actually, it was something like 5 years ago, but they just figured it out. Um, so that experience, you are spot on. And I have had people call me. In fact, I had a person call me recently. They were trying to sell, they wanted me to buy some advertising on a certain platform. And they just started talking. And I was kind of interested. And I asked him a question or two. And he went on and on and on, had a million things to say to me, a lot of features that I had to hear about. And I finally had to talk over him. And I said, "Listen, stop talking. Tell me, can you do X, Y, and Z?" And I gave him some very specific things. And he went back to the features like, I'll catch you later. I'm not interested. And I got off the phone. Actually, I literally think I had to hang up on the guy because he was just feature vomited, blah, 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 blah. If you got that person, you're sitting there and you're assigned to help this particular group do better, and this is what they were taught. How do you take that salesperson and say, "Hey, we're going to switch this around. We're going to help you be more successful," because you just had a prospect, and he did, by the way. I was a prospect. You had a prospect on the phone, you just lost him. How do you help him?
We're going to teach that person to rebel. Right? We're gonna teach that person to get back to becoming more of an authentic seller, somebody that's tapped into who it is, the belief system of what it is that they will allow to drive them from a purpose standpoint to become better in those moments, to become more in tune with what it is that people need and desire from them, to give the right kind of experiences, to start thinking more from the community perspective and aspect, and get away from this idea that somehow sales is just about a commission check, just about the quota, just about the quarterly bonus, right? Well, because guess what, salespeople, that when the year's over, all that stuff it's restarts, and you get a higher quota, and you get a higher expectation from the organization to hit, right? That's the never ending story of sales. And so the problem is that a lot of salespeople chase their career because of it instead of proactively conquering it at a young age and building ultimate freedom into what it is that they desire to do for a living. Again, like, we shackle ourselves to the status quo, to the mediocrity of sales, to this idea that, like, just make 100 calls, you'll be fine. Just do it again tomorrow, you'll be fine. Just say this
Volume.
thing over and over
Yeah.
again, right?
At
That's
bats.
garbage. Garbage.
All right, so Dale, I'm going to nail you down here. So I love everything you've said, but what do you tell that guy? Right? Say, okay, step one, you do this. What would you say? I mean, give me some concrete examples of things that you're going to say to that salesperson that loves to just feature. That's what I call it. I call it feature vomiting. They're just like, blah, here's all the great things we can do, blah, 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 blah. And they're talking so fast and they run that person off. What is the first couple of things that you would say, do this, this, and this next on your next call?
The first thing that we would start with is creating a framework. The problem is that a lot of people use scripts and they use processes and systems. We want people to have frameworks where they can look at a word like use your or a sentence like use your aptitude during the phone call, right? Like the natural ability to either, whether it's talk or listen or whatever it is, like tune into your aptitude during this phone call. Check. I'll remind myself of that, right? Try not to speak as much as you normally do. Take 2 seconds in between of silence when somebody responds to you. Like, if we can create a framework around simplistic behaviors, right, that cause people to hear you different, see you different, listen different, and then expose the things that they're typically holding back from you because they don't trust you, right? If we can create a framework around that, then we'll change the game for that sales rep. But the first thing that we do is we get them away from this idea that, like, somehow there's a method to the madness around, like, hi, I'm with this company and I sell this thing, and can we talk for 30 more seconds? Instead, we're going to teach the person to be very proactive about the call. Hey, you probably hate sales calls as much as I do making them. But listen, if you're
I like that.
Whether you're a gambling person or not, Mark, would you roll the dice with me real quick and see what it is that I'm peddling this week? Because you never know, maybe it'll help you out. And if I can start to give people more of just like and again, like, that's for me, like, that's to answer your question, that's like an entry level way to just get people thinking different, right? Ultimately, it turns into this identity of servant leadership, like we've talked about before, right? Hey, Mark, this is a sales call. You want to roll the dice? Making it nice and easy, nice and simple for people to just be like, what? And sometimes people say no, Mark, right? But here's the thing is, I don't have to call 100 of them to get a yes, right? That's the new trend that we teach this rep. And by just literally opening the floodgates to one simple thing, it turns into a completely different perspective. And then when we get them one crumpled letter in the mail, right, we send it to one person that we know has a 90% chance of opening it, right? We've done good research.
Yep.
We let them send that crumpled letter out. That buyer opens it, reads it. You're probably wondering why this letter looks like it came out of the garbage. That's because 90% of sales and marketing that you receive is. So I made it easier for you to crumple this up and throw it away. And when they make that call and they go, hey, I sent a crumpled letter. Did you get it? The things that you say in response to that statement, if you've gotten the letter, builds on a very natural progression of communication with people, a literal conversation that they've never probably had, because all they're ever doing is feature dumping and trying to book appointments. And it's an awakening for people in those moments. And then, usually we radicalize it, right? But then we tailor it in to where, like, some people still have to do the metric, right? We get that. So instead of like fighting against it to the point of like being, kind of selfish ourselves and saying, we'll never touch stuff like that. Instead, like, we're okay with saying, we understand why you do it this way. We want to help you to still be able to have better conversations, though. We want to help you to still be able to use the principles of the things that we discuss and teach to get outcomes that create impact for people. to build the legacy that you desire to leave. And like you've probably heard me say that a couple of times on the whole legacy thought or the passion thought or this identity of intrinsic value. But that's extremely important for salespeople. Most salespeople don't have the fire, and they're not somebody that somebody wants to buy from. If you got 18 salespeople all vying for your business, the company and the product don't matter for squat, unless literally there is a product or a company out there that just like undoubtedly does things so much better that it's almost nonsense to choose someone else, which we both know, Mark, you and I, and anybody listening, that's not really a thing unless it's a niche, right? So because of that, like, what do you think people buy? They buy the person. They buy your ability to connect with them, your ability to present, your ability to posture yourself and to show them, this very, very, very different way of running a sales cycle through giving experiences and allowing people to feel connected to you instead of constantly feeling like they're being sold or forced to like you.
This is so cool. All right, folks, we're here talking with Dale Dupree of the sale. He is the sales rebel with the Sales Rebellion. And if you have a question you would love to ask, throw it in the comments bar. We will be happy to serve that up to Dale. That, by the way, there is a product that does stand out that you just buy because you love the product, and it's the iPhone, right? Apple did stuff. I mean,
got one right here.
Yeah.
We say that they're the original rebels, right? They're a group that came in like they were looking at a powerhouse of a company that owned everything, and they said, "No way, man! What we're gonna do is we're gonna niche into this tiny market and become so popular within that circle that everyone knows our name." And they did it, right? They gave experiences. They created a completely different outcome for you, the owner, right, in the first place. And I still remember being a kid and my friends having Macs just so we could do things like play specific video games. So they were even thinking about the demographic of the human and what, again, like that idea for me, what that comes back to is when we give experiences, when we pick people out of a CRM and say, hey, I'm going to sell this person somebody, like ask yourself why, right? Why would they care? So what if you want to sell it to them, sell your product to them? Why should they even take 2 seconds out of their day to hear you out in the first place? And apply the same identity of what Apple created, which is that we know that people already use Windows, like, and people are going to be using that for a long time. They're going to be using this whole Microsoft product. It's going to be something that's changed the landscape of the world. We're not going to be able to become them, but we can do what we dream to do. Absolutely, if we put our mind to it
and just crush it. Yeah, it's an impressive product without a doubt. So I think it's really interesting, and I'd love to even one day hear more about how do you get people on the phone and then how you develop that relationship with them. If you are watching and you've heard Dale's example, would you talk to Dale as a salesperson? So, hey, I hate sales calls as much as you. How'd you put that? I know you hate sales calls as much as I hate making them.
That's it.
And I'm one of those folks. Would you like to roll the dice with me today? I think that's really interesting. I would probably go, okay, let's roll. Right. That would be me. But there are some people like, no, I'm not interested. All right. Well, have a nice day. I think that's okay. I mean, you've just given me the permission to walk away from that call. Right. And I do think there's a lot of salespeople that feel like and have heard, oh, well, you should have done X, Y, and Z, and you could have flipped that person. Well, I don't think it's true. And what you're sharing with me is kind of a validation of that. There are some people you're just not going to be able to sell to.
I totally agree with you. And I think it's absolute bologna sandwich, like double bologna sandwich with the worst ingredients ever on it, like kitty litter, that anybody can be convinced because of some crap that you said, right, that you spent off of their words to just suddenly purchase from you. Right, you might be able to passively get someone to agree to talk to you further and see a demo, right? In that weak moment. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, anybody in sales that's listening, be honest. Those people bail on the demo, right, before it shows up a couple weeks later, and you're like, I don't know what happened, and then you just hound them and pound them until they either delete you, call the police, or just write you back and say, hey, listen, I'm not a good fit. And even in those moments, a lot of times, most salespeople just kind of stick them back in the CRM for somebody else to bother in 6 months instead of really meeting people where they are, right? And finding out like, well, what could I have done better? or why don't you think you're a good fit in the first place? Like, and proactively, if we were seeking those things instead of being reactive about our sales process and our sales model, we would find a lot better outcomes for ourselves, would motivate us to continue to be better inside of the vertical as well too, not just because of the outcome, right, but because we would see in those moments like that we're really changing the landscape of this, right? In my
Yeah.
territory alone, I got to witness that. I got to see what I was doing for people, their attitudes. I mean, I had people write me literal handwritten notes saying, hey, we just thought it was like worth sending you this card from the literal office staff to say, we really appreciate you and what you've done for our business. It's really has made things a lot easier around here. And I just sold copiers, bro. Right. But that's the whole point, is like you could sell anything and have that kind of effect on people in the first place.
So one of the things that I wanted to get in with you is building a legacy in sales. And number one is, where did the idea of building a legacy in sales come from? I've not heard this specific terminology before. What do you mean by building a legacy?
So the whole concept comes from a legend. His name is Curtis Dupree. He's my late father. And when I first learned my dad's story as a young man, it starts in 1984, and kind of the way that it was expressed to me by others was, your dad quit the big box store that he worked at, which was a powerhouse in the state of Florida, like second largest copier dealership in the state of Florida at the time. And he started his own company. And what were the reasons why he did that, Dale? Let me tell you. And I mean, like, you just like open the floodgates in those moments, right? Like people would just give you some of the most audacious reasons for why he had left, whether it was just in general, the way that the business world worked from the perspective of what we would call a scumbag business owner. No shade. But the guy that was running that business sucked, right? Is kind of the bottom line. And then the way that carried down from the ivory tower into the employees and the service departments was people didn't get toners for like 10 to 12 days in some cases, right? And people that were calling in for service were having to be like down for, upwards of 2 weeks in some cases because, we got to ship the part in or blah, blah, blah. So my father really created this whole identity behind what a legacy is in the business world and in sales by really standing up, right, to what it was that had taken over the industry and was the norm. It was the gold standard, right? Like at that point. And so you talked earlier about like how you going to change the sales landscape one person at a time. My father was the first person in my opinion, right, in the copier world down here in Florida to really step out of the box and say, I want to serve people. I want to wear who I am on my sleeve. I want to be able to support them further than just like selling them a product. I want to be able to fix their problems. I want to be able to meet their needs. And I want to also be able to help the individuals where I can as well, and help the community and be involved in projects and nonprofits and associations. And then the best part, Mark, I'm never going to ever seek any kind of status from that. I'm never gonna try to get a plaque on a wall, or matter of fact, like most of the things my dad did, from a nonprofit standpoint or a giving standpoint, he never even told people it was him. It was always, just in the shadows or under the radar or anonymous, right? And I'll never forget this, Mark. I'll tell you this. I remember when a lady named Marcia Gatke, who's a good friend of mine now, she had made a plaque for my dad, had one of the members of the Titusville Chamber of Commerce. And that's where my dad's business was founded in Titusville, Florida, the Space Coast. And she brought this plaque down, and it was basically this plaque. It was like recognition for all that you did for a particular thing that every year that he donated to. He would never go and accept the award. So they made a plaque for him instead and hand delivered it to the office. And I just remember handing it to him being like, what's this? Right. And he was like, don't worry about it. And just like sit behind the desk where nobody could see it.
Wow.
My dad did not want recognition for his service. He wanted to be a leader that just set a precedence. And this is the legacy part comes in and starts there.
I love that. That is a great story. Thank you for sharing it. I wish we could have, is your dad still with us?
My dad passed away in 2016 to cancer. So
well, I'm sorry to hear that, but you've got some great memories from him, and he was a servant leader. Clearly, by the way that he has influenced you, I don't think I would actually be as bold to say as without your father, you don't, you're not a sales rebel. He was he taught you that, and I think that's really cool. All right. So, Dale, where do you want people to find you? We did this in the first segment, but share it again. Where's the best place for people to track you down?
Sure. Daily content, linkedin.com/in/Copier Warrior. Check out my content feed there. Feel free to follow me, connect with me. Any of the social sites, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just at Sales Rebellion, or just type in Dale Dupree. You'll find me. And if you want to learn more about the company, please, by all means, head to thesalesrebellion.com, or you can also find our content streams on those social media channels as well, too, to learn more about how we help individual salespeople, teams of salespeople, SKOs, all the way down to weekly training, our systems, our curriculum, everything. It's all there for y'all to dig into. Most importantly, when you find all these things and you start learning more about us, take a minute to ask yourself, what are you doing to stand out in the sea of sameness? What are you doing to serve the community more effectively as a salesperson, to build a legacy and to change the game? And hopefully, in the process of asking those questions, you become more in love and in tune with what it is that you could be doing, and that you join our community and you join our movement and you become a rebel yourself. And that we get to be able to sit there next to you and watch that success come to fruition in the first place. That's why we exist.
Sweet. I love it. Great story, great advice. Dale, I'm so glad you joined us today. I think that the info you've shared today can certainly help any salesperson, just one little step. And then listen, folks, if you're in sales and you're looking for some interesting solutions because you just haven't been able to meet your quota, or you don't feel like you're really hitting on all cylinders, I love what Dale has shared today. I'm really impressed. And I'm going to go to the office tomorrow and meet with our sales team, and we're going to do some coffee stained letters without a doubt. That'll work. Well, Dale, thanks for being with us. We so appreciate you. Hang out. We're going to do a little bit of a post-show quick Q&A, but we appreciate you being here. Thanks a ton. Folks, for the rest of you, we're a podcast looking to provide this type of content for you every single show. So we're glad you are here, or you got to hear some great information, and pass this along to your salespeople. There's some nuggets from this show that will change their effectiveness without a doubt. Our show is produced by ePresence, and ePresence is a social media agency. You can find us online at epresence.me. That's epresence.me, because it's all about you. We're a full service social media agency. We can help you with your personal or company social media management. We even offer training and consulting. If you would like for somebody just to come in and look at your social media and give you some tips, we can do that for you. If you'd like more information, or you'd like to take advantage of being a discount, let me rephrase that. If you would like to take advantage of a discount, you get one just by being a viewer of our show. Go to e-pr.me/listener. That's e-pr.me/listener. Go there and you can get a 5% discount on all of our services, or just give us a call. And if you do and mention our show, we will give you that 5% discount. How's Your Presence is everywhere. We broadcast on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We're so glad you're with us today. Wherever you are, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button so you know when we go live. If you like podcasts, just go to your favorite podcast app, and I'm sure you can add us to it. We are on all the major platforms. For more information on all of our shows and our podcasts, go to epresence.me/podcast. Again, epresence.me/podcast. Our in-house producer is Mackenzie Munzer. We so appreciate the work that she does. She's about to go back to Georgia and go back to school. And I think that we're thrilled with the work that she does here. And think about her. Keep her in your heart, because she's going through, her parents are headed one way. They're moving out of state, so she needs a little extra love. So we got to make sure that we give her some support. Until next time, for my guest, Dale Dupree, I am Mark Galvin. Thank you for watching How's Your Represence?